Emma and I had just celebrated our 20th anniversary, along with our 3 kids, Lily, who's 16, Ryan, 13, and Adam, our 15-year-old son. My name's Max, and at that time, I was a 42-year-old dad and husband, feeling content with the life we had built. Emma, my wife since her 20s and the only woman I'd ever loved, was a charming blonde with blue eyes, standing at 5 feet 6 inches and weighing around 105 pounds. Together, we'd built a life that, for the most part, centered around our kids, making sure to provide a loving home, whether we were going through good times or tough ones. That we shared everything: birthdays, school events, Adam's football injuries, the girls' soccer mishaps, and, of course, Emma's fight against cancer 7 years ago. That struggle brought us even closer. Raising 3 kids and handling our finances wasn't easy, which meant things like going to the gym or taking care of ourselves physically sometimes took a back seat. After 2 decades, we'd both put on a little weight, but we didn't stress about it. Our priority was always our kids' future, not how we looked. I worked in production management, while Emma handled purchasing. Our lives had settled into a routine, but we always made sure to keep our relationship strong, both emotionally and physically. 4 years ago, Sophia and Ethan moved into the neighborhood. They were a young couple in their late 20s with no kids, and they quickly gained a reputation for hosting lively weekend parties. Sophia, a gym instructor with a body to match, and her husband Ethan, who was also in great shape, seemed to bring a youthful energy to the neighborhood. When Emma hit 38, she'd put on a bit of weight, but it didn't bother me. After all, I wasn't exactly slim either. Sophia, though, kept encouraging Emma to join her at the gym, telling her she could drop the extra pounds easily. 2 years later, just before Emma turned 40, she had shed most of that weight and looked almost like her younger self again. I made sure to tell her how beautiful she looked. This change seemed to give her a newfound confidence. Our sex life even improved as she seemed to have more energy than before. She embraced her transformation, and I tried to do my best to keep her happy. Along with her new figure came a new wardrobe. Thanks to Sophia's influence, Emma began dressing in more revealing and trendy outfits to show off her new body. At first, it made me uncomfortable seeing her leave for work dressed so fashionably, while I still wore my usual, more modest attire. For her 40th birthday, I threw her a party, complete with a live band and catering at a local hotel. She looked incredible in her chic dress and heels, and I wasn't the only one who noticed. I saw other men admiring her too, and she seemed to soak in the attention, exuding confidence I hadn't seen before. She publicly thanked Sophia for helping her get her youth back and for improving our marriage. While I was proud of how she looked and loved the new energy she had, there was a part of me that couldn't shake the discomfort. Throughout our marriage, Emma had never openly flirted with other men, let alone danced with them. But at this party, she seemed to enjoy being the center of attention, especially with the younger guys from her office. It bothered me, but I let it slide, telling myself it was her night to enjoy. I planned to talk about it later. That night, when I brought it up, Emma apologized right away. She promised me she didn't want to make me feel jealous or uncomfortable and reassured me it wouldn't happen again. She told me she'd gotten carried away with the excitement and the drinks that night. To make it up to me, she went above and beyond in bed, even giving me a special treat with a BJ, something she rarely did. That night, Emma was full of energy, making sure I was completely satisfied, showing her appreciation for the party in her own way. After that, things went back to normal, except Emma started staying out late a few nights a week because of her gym sessions. I stepped up at home, making sure the kids were taken care of and that dinner was ready when she came home late. Our son Adam had a school club on Thursdays, and since it was a bit of a drive across some busy streets, Emma agreed to pick him up those days. Adam, being 15 and at that age where he didn't want his parents hovering over him, often complained, insisting he could just walk home. But I put my foot down. With the dangerous roads he'd have to cross, I told him there was no room for negotiation. If he wanted to stay in the club, he had to get a ride from us, no exceptions. He reluctantly agreed, and I picked him up every day except for Thursdays because I had staff meetings, leaving that to Emma. 1 week, though, Emma was so wrapped up in work that she completely forgot to pick him up. After waiting around for 40 minutes, Adam finally decided to walk home. That day, I was genuinely angry, a rare moment for me. Emma could see how upset I was, and she felt terrible. She apologized profusely, clearly shaken by how I reacted. I let her know how I felt, and she swore it wouldn't happen again. After I calmed down, I realized no real harm was done and let it go. She made up for it that night in bed, and life went back to how it was. On the surface, things seemed fine. Financially, we were stable, work was going well, and the family seemed happy. But deep down, I wasn't. About 2 months after that incident, I noticed our sex life had taken a nosedive. We'd gone from being intimate 4 or 5 times a week to barely once or twice, and even when we did, it lacked the passion we used to have. Emma was becoming more and more self-absorbed, focused on her appearance, always going for facials, and religiously keeping her hair and nails done. It seemed like turning 40 had triggered something in her, like she was on a mission to stop time and reclaim her youth. Our closet filled up with new clothes and shoes, and when I gently brought up her excessive spending, she lashed out, angry. She insisted that everything she was doing was for me, so I could enjoy how young and attractive she looked. I wanted to tell her that none of it mattered if our relationship was falling apart, but I held back. I told her I loved her, both the way she used to be and who she was now, but inside, I missed the old Emma, the one who wasn't so obsessed with looking perfect. Meanwhile, her late nights continued. She spent even more time at the gym and started going out with Sophia, our neighbor, and her gym buddy. That's when I decided it was time to do something drastic to pull us back together. I still loved Emma, but I needed to take control of the situation before things got worse. I planned a weekend getaway for the two of us, hoping to reconnect and revive what we'd lost. The following week, I made dinner reservations for Friday night, intending to share my plans for the getaway over a romantic meal. On Tuesday, I told her about the reservations and let her know I'd already arranged for her parents to look after the kids. The next morning, I watched as Emma got ready for work in yet another new dress. It felt overly fancy for her job, especially with the extravagant accessories she paired with it. I couldn't help but ask her about it, and she explained that some senior executives were visiting, so she wanted to make a strong impression. Rather than stir up an argument, I kept quiet, but inside, I wondered if I'd ever get the old Emma back. I still loved her, but this new version of her was tough for me to adjust to. Maybe it was my own insecurities creeping in. I hadn't lost the weight I gained over the years, and standing next to her now, we didn't look much like a couple anymore. It felt like I had a trophy wife, but without the love and connection we once shared. I clung to the hope that our weekend getaway would help reignite the spark between us, but unfortunately, the events of that week put everything on hold. It was Thursday afternoon, around 4 p.m., when I got a call from the hospital. I was in the middle of giving a presentation during a staff meeting when the call came through, telling me Adam was in the emergency room and needed immediate surgery. They stressed the urgency of the situation, and I had to get to the hospital as soon as possible. I bolted from the office, jumped into my car, and drove like a madman to get there. It was about 15 minutes away. As I rushed to the hospital, I tried calling Emma over and over, but she didn't pick up. I also called her parents, asking them to grab our daughters and meet us at the hospital to support Adam. Meanwhile, I left Emma multiple voicemails and sent her several texts, growing more and more worried. Normally, she always answered her phone, but today, there was nothing but silence from her. At the hospital, I spoke with the doctors, handled some paperwork, gave them our insurance details, and managed to see Adam briefly. He had a broken leg, along with several cuts and bruises. Seeing him like that tore me up inside, and I had to hold back tears as they wheeled him into surgery. I felt completely alone in that moment, overwhelmed not just by Adam's condition but also by Emma's unexplained absence. They directed me to the surgery waiting room, where I was reunited with our daughters and Emma's parents, Liam and Ava. They looked at me for answers, but I didn't have much to offer. I shared what little I knew, including the fact that Emma was nowhere to be found. It became clear that she hadn't picked up Adam from school like she was supposed to, and he had ended up walking home on his own. That I was deeply concerned, not just about Adam's injury, but also about Emma's sudden disappearance. The unanswered calls, her failure to pick up Adam, it wasn't like her. As we stood together in the private waiting room, trying to make sense of what had happened, I told everyone I'd call her office again to see if they had any information. That I dialed the number and explained the situation to the person on the other end, stressing how urgent it was for me to find her. After a brief pause, they informed me that Emma hadn't been seen at the office since her lunch break. My heart sank. I asked if they knew who she had gone to lunch with, hoping it might provide a clue. She informed me that Emma had gone to lunch around 1 p.m. with a man named Mr. Parker, a sales rep from one of their suppliers. I asked for his contact details, hoping to track down where Emma might be. After a brief wait, she sent me his business number, and I thanked her before hanging up. I immediately dialed his number, but the call went straight to voicemail. The knot in my stomach tightened. Our son was about to undergo surgery, and my wife was nowhere to be found, possibly off somewhere with a salesman. It felt like everything was crashing down at once. Tears welled up in my eyes, the stress and confusion too much to bear. Ava, Emma's mom, came over and gave me a reassuring hug, telling me to stay strong. But anger was starting to rise inside me. Then, suddenly, Lily yelled, "Dad, I found Mom." I spun around to face her, my heart racing. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She explained that Emma had installed a tracking app on their phones to keep an eye on them, and as it turned out, it worked for Emma's phone too. Lily showed me her screen, where a red dot blinked. "That's where she is," she said. That I asked where exactly that was, and Lily zoomed in on the location. It was a downtown hotel. The shock in the room was palpable. We all exchanged uneasy glances, and I realized in that moment that this could be the end of my marriage. But I had to focus on Adam. Without wasting any more time, I called the hotel, asking to be connected to Mr. Parker's room. They put me on hold, and I could feel the blood pounding in my ears as I waited. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the phone started ringing. It rang 8 times before a voice came on, frustrated. "Hello? Is this Mr. Parker?" I asked, my tone steady despite my anger. "Yeah, who's this?" he responded. "I need to speak with Emma," I demanded. There was a pause before he tried to play dumb. "She's not here." I wasn't buying it. "Listen, Parker, I'm her husband, and our son is in critical condition at the hospital," I said, my voice firm. "I know she's with you. Put her on the phone now. If I don't talk to her before our son goes into surgery, I will find you, and I will deal with you myself. Do you understand?" The line went quiet, and I heard shuffling before Emma's voice finally came on. She sounded nervous. "Hello?" I stayed calm but firm as I told her what was going on. "Adam got hit by a car on his way home from school," I said. "He's in critical condition and about to go into surgery. You need to get to the hospital, now. The surgery waiting room at X hospital." Right away, her scream on the other end pierced through the phone, and then the line went dead. That I hadn't realized it, but my daughters and Emma's parents had been listening to the entire conversation. When I turned around, they were staring at me in utter disbelief. The weight of the day, the accident, Emma's betrayal, the thought of my son in surgery, it all hit me at once, and for the first time in front of my family, I broke down. Tears streamed down my face, and I couldn't stop them. The agony of Adam's accident and the shock of discovering Emma's betrayal were almost too much to handle. I found myself collapsing to my knees, sobbing uncontrollably. My children gathered around me, their own tears mingling with mine, offering comfort in this shared moment of despair. Our neighbors, Sophia and Ethan, stood nearby, their faces reflecting the weight of the heartbreaking scene unfolding before them. After a while, I managed to pull myself together. I kissed my daughters, wiped away my tears, and addressed everyone. I apologized for the scene they had witnessed, explaining that I had lost my composure when I answered the phone. I shared that it appeared Emma had spent the afternoon in bed with a coworker, neglecting to pick up Jacob. I reassured them that now that Emma knew about Adam's condition, she would likely be arriving soon. I asked them to keep her away from me for now, as I was uncertain how I would react in my current emotional state. That I could see the anger in Ava's eyes. She was a strong woman who had not raised her daughter to behave like this. Ava had already voiced her disapproval of Emma's recent behavior, but she had never expected her daughter to act in such a disgraceful manner. Lily, still in tears, asked me, "Dad, is Mom cheating on you?" "It seems that way," I replied, though I urged her to speak to her mother when she arrived. "For now, let's focus on praying for your brother. He needs all our prayers right now. We can deal with Mom later." About 20 minutes later, Emma walked into the surgical waiting room, only to be immediately confronted by her mother. Ava, her face a mask of fury and disappointment, slapped Emma with such force that it seemed capable of toppling a grown man. Emma's head jerked to the side, and her face reddened from the blow. In tears, Ava choked out, "You disgrace. We raised you better than this. This is all your fault. I hope you're satisfied." Her father, intervening, held Ava back and looked at Emma with deep sorrow. "Emma, enough of this," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "We all know what you've been up to today. It's a shame that you cared more about your lover than your son. Now, your son is fighting for his life because you were with another man." Lily, her anger and pain palpable, shouted, "I hate you. You cheated on Dad, and now Adam might die. I hate you." The scene was chaotic and emotionally charged. Emma glanced in my direction, but upon seeing my expression, she turned away and sank into a chair, isolating herself from the rest of us. We spent the next 30 minutes anxiously awaiting news on Adam's condition. Finally, a doctor arrived to update us. He explained that Adam had suffered broken bones and a punctured lung, which had been treated. He informed us that Adam would need a blood transfusion and asked if we could donate. We all agreed without hesitation. As we waited for our blood to be drawn, I couldn't help but notice Emma's disheveled appearance. She had obviously rushed from the hotel, her nylons missing, her makeup smeared, and her hair unbrushed. The unmistakable scent of another man lingered around her. "Emma," I said, my voice sharp with anger, "you look a mess. Your nylons are missing, your makeup is smeared, and you haven't even bothered to brush your hair. You smell like sex, and it's clear you're sitting here with your family while carrying the scent of your boyfriend. This is the height of disrespect." My comment jolted Emma back into reality. For the first time since she'd arrived, she looked up and spoke. "Max, he's not my boyfriend," she said, her voice shaking. "Please don't say that. I only love you." I couldn't hold back my frustration. "Emma, if he's not your boyfriend, then are you just having flings with random men? Is that what this has become? You've been turning me away for months. Even last night, you claimed you had a headache and pushed me away. Why, Emma? Did you prefer being with someone else? Was that why you needed to look so perfect today? Look, this isn't the time or place for this conversation. Go home, clean yourself up, and come back looking presentable. Our children and your parents don't need to see you like this," I added sternly. "We'll talk about your betrayal and our future, but not now. My energy is focused on Adam's recovery, not dealing with your mess. Go home, get yourself together. If you can't drive, I'll have your father or someone else take you. But right now, you need to leave. Adam's surgery will take a while, and you should be here when he wakes up." Emma stood, her tears still flowing, and left after apologizing. A couple of hours later, she returned, her makeup removed, her hair in a messy ponytail, dressed in casual jeans and a sweater. Though she had stopped crying, her exhaustion was evident. Emma sat with her parents and our daughters, trying to stay close to me. I reassured my daughters, stressing that despite everything, they shouldn't hold on to resentment toward their mother. We needed to focus on Adam right now. I told them we could deal with this situation later, but for now, we had to unite as a family. We spent the next 2 days in the hospital, taking turns by Adam's bedside while he remained in a medically induced coma. On the 3rd day, the doctors gave us some good news. Adam was going to be okay. He would need more time in the hospital, but he should be home within a week. We were all overwhelmed with relief and embraced each other, tears of joy flowing. Emma tried to approach me, but I kept my distance, gently pushing her away as I comforted our daughters. Her world had crumbled, and she seemed lost, unsure of how to repair the damage or save our marriage. With no arrangements for us to sleep at the hospital, I decided it was time to discuss our living situation. Once Adam was back home, I told Emma that I would be returning to our house. I made it clear that I did not want her in my bed, and given her recent actions, she would need to move her belongings to the guest room. Emma cried and pleaded, saying she loved me and asking not to be kicked out. I told her that, for now, until Adam was fully recovered, there was no us. She would remain an essential part of our family for Adam's sake, but we needed to focus on his recovery and navigate this turmoil separately. As far as I'm concerned, Emma and I are no longer a couple. Although we're still legally married for now, I no longer see her as my wife. Emma cried, but she accepted the reality and moved her belongings to the guest room. I also had a discussion with our daughters, who understood the situation. We all agreed to keep the details from Adam until he was further along in his recovery. I transformed our living room into Adam's recovery space, renting a hospital bed and a wheelchair, hiring a daytime nurse, and preparing for his return home. With Adam confined to the living room, he wouldn't be aware of our separate sleeping arrangements. As long as we kept our secret, our focus remained on his recovery. The driver who hit Adam turned out to be a worker for a paint company. During the investigation, the police found that he had been vaping, texting on his phone, and under the influence at the time of the accident. Our case attracted significant attention. Our attorneys were confident in our strong case and sought substantial compensation. The company, realizing the severity of their situation, offered a large settlement to avoid risking even higher punitive damages from a jury. While the settlement did little to lessen our anger and grief, it did provide us with the means to afford the best medical treatments and physical therapy for Adam. It also secured his future, covered our children's college expenses, and allowed me to take a hiatus from work to be there for Adam during his 18-month recovery. When Adam was finally released from the hospital, we brought him home to a new room equipped with a hospital bed, a TV remote, and his video games, making his rehabilitation as comfortable as possible. We had several day-in nurses assisting us, which turned out to be a blessing. Sophia and Ethan came over daily to help, and together with our daughters, we adapted to our new normal. Ethan and I spent a lot of time discussing my plans, while Emma's parents suggested counseling in an attempt to keep our family together. I wasn't ready for that yet. My focus was on helping Adam through this difficult time. Emma and I only communicated when we were together for Adam's sake. Adam, being perceptive, sensed something was amiss. One day, when we were alone, he asked me about what was happening and if I could ever forgive his mother. He reminded me that she loved me and that he could see she was in pain. I wiped away a tear and told him that our issues were not his concern and that he should focus on getting better. That moment made me realize I needed to confront the situation and make some decisions. I told Emma that we would go out for dinner on Friday night to have a serious conversation. Sophia and Ethan agreed to look after the kids that evening. We went to our favorite Italian restaurant, and after a few drinks, I decided it was time to talk. I asked the waiter for a moment before we ordered. It was the first time since the accident that I'd spoken directly to Emma. Until now, I'd only answered questions or participated in conversations, so this was the first real discussion we'd had about our future. Emma, I began, I understand it's been tough for you, and it's not fair that you're in the guest room. Since the accident, I haven't had a chance to think about our future, but over the past few days, I've come up with a plan to ease the stress on the family. I'll look for an apartment near the house so you can move back into the master bedroom once Adam is up and moving. I plan to start the divorce process then. I want to wait until he's better before he learns the full reason for our separation." A tear fell from her eye, and I felt like a boy who had just lost his best friend. I struggled to hold back my own tears, mourning the years of love now marred by her selfish act. She asked if there was any chance I could forgive her and let her back into my life. "Emma," I said, "I love you, and I probably always will. Losing you has been the hardest thing I've ever faced, apart from Adam's accident. I just don't see a way back. Your choice to put your boyfriend before our family and betray my love is something I'm not sure I can ever get over. Adam nearly lost his life because you chose to be with Parker. Try to understand my perspective on this." She asked me not to mention Parker's name and admitted that she loathed herself since that day, recognizing that she had made a terrible mistake and didn't deserve anything from me or our daughters. She wondered if there was anything she could do to make amends, but I told her I doubted it, given that she hadn't taken any steps to truly resolve the situation, which seemed to indicate a lack of genuine concern. I added that once our divorce was finalized, she could pursue her relationship with Parker or anyone else. With her new appearance and charm, she could likely attract any man she desired. Emma acknowledged this but emphasized that since the accident, she had been focusing on supporting Adam and had tried not to dwell on what she'd done to me. She pleaded for another chance. "Do as you wish, Emma," I said. "I'm not making any promises. I'll wait a few weeks before I start looking for an apartment. However, when I think about the months leading up to the accident, the way you treated me, the lack of intimacy, and your self-centeredness, I can't help but feel that you genuinely don't care. I was by your side during illness, and I idolized you. Yet you discarded that love as if it were nothing, handing over what was once mine to another man. I don't know how I can move past that. Tell me," I continued, "how long were you involved with Parker before that day?" She confessed that she had never been with him before the incident and that it had only happened once, insisting there was no one else that I needed more than Emma's vague reassurances. Her answers didn't address my real concern. How long had she been involved with Parker? It was apparent they'd planned something long before the accident. I probed further, asking if they'd shared more than just physical moments, like lunch dates, drinks, or personal messages. When I asked if I would find proof of their relationship in her texts or emails, I tried to make her understand that an affair isn't just about physical attraction. It's about emotional investment and secrecy. I needed her to come clean. Finally, she admitted the affair had begun around 3 months before the accident. Just before her 40th birthday, she confided that she had been feeling old and unattractive. When Parker discovered she was turning 40, he began flattering her relentlessly, making her feel youthful and desirable again. She knew it was wrong but couldn't deny the thrill she got from his attention. After 20 years with only me, she felt like a teenager, swept up in his flattery and persistence. He took her out to lunch and then to his hotel room, where he seduced her. She'd regretted her decision deeply since that day and insisted it was a one-time mistake, vowing never to do it again. That I countered by reminding her of her behavior at her birthday party, how she reveled in the attention from younger men. Since she'd started going to the gym with Sophia, she'd changed. I wasn't just hurt by the affair, I was disillusioned by the way she transformed. I understood her desire for excitement and to feel attractive, but I wished she had communicated her dissatisfaction with me rather than seeking validation from someone else. I didn't want to be with someone who made me feel inadequate or who engaged in deceitful behavior. The trust, confidence, and sense of security I once had were shattered. That I told her I wasn't sure if our relationship could be salvaged after everything. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken pain. When we got home, Ethan's hopeful look only made my resolve firmer. I thanked him for looking after the kids and went inside. A month later, Emma tried to take control of the situation. She surprised me by making dinner reservations and insisted on having a serious talk. Emma acknowledged the truth in everything I'd said. She admitted that over the past 2 years, she'd been living her life as if I were an afterthought, focusing solely on herself and her physical appearance. She conceded that what she'd done was unforgivable, a breach that couldn't be undone or reversed. She revealed that she had been seeing a therapist to grapple with the guilt of her actions. She described the sleepless nights spent in tears, reflecting on how close we'd come to losing our son and how her actions had hurt the man she claimed to love. Her therapist had helped her understand the profound impact of her selfishness, explaining how she had inflicted the deepest kind of pain. Emma also shared insights from her therapy, suggesting that her behavior might have stemmed from a desperate need for attention or a midlife crisis. I disagreed, feeling that this explanation didn't suffice. I acknowledged my own shortcomings, my mistakes, and the misguided belief that I deserved to revel in my newfound youth. Initially, my goal was merely to get in shape, but as I lost weight and attracted attention, I felt invigorated and desirable, especially as my 40th birthday approached. As Emma spoke, it was clear she was struggling to maintain her composure. I remained silent, letting her continue. She confessed that what baffled her the most was her love for our life, our children, and our marriage. She had never intended to hurt me or be unfaithful, yet she ended up doing just that. It started innocently, with the flirtations at my birthday party that I had dismissed. Then came the lunches, more flirtation, and ultimately, the affair during a meaningless afternoon. She expressed her deep self-loathing and frustration at how this was not who she truly was. Emma expressed her profound remorse for the pain she had caused me and the damage inflicted on our son. She carried a heavy burden of guilt and acknowledged that her actions had been entirely selfish, driven by her own desires without regard for the consequences on our relationship. She made it clear that she wasn't offering excuses and didn't expect forgiveness, understanding that she had violated our vows and betrayed my trust. If I chose to seek retribution, she would accept it, though it would sadden her. Her ultimate wish was for my happiness, even if it meant I found it with someone else. In the meantime, Emma was committed to making an effort to win me back. She recalled my criticism during our last dinner that she hadn't taken any steps to salvage our marriage. Emma admitted she had been so focused on our son's well-being that she didn't know how to mend what was broken between us. Since then, she had spent the past month trying to show that she was serious about making amends and winning me back. Emma maintained her composure, her voice steady and serious as she outlined her plan. She started by revealing that she had resigned from her job and intended to become a full-time stay-at-home mom. Her plan was to take care of Adam around the clock, which would eliminate the need for day nurses. In a bold move, she had also informed her boss, Mr. Wright, about her affair with Parker. Given Parker's standing in the community and their connection through church, Mr. Wright had called the supplier to end their business relationship unless Parker was terminated immediately. It turned out that our company was their largest customer, and a significant portion of their revenue depended on us. I later discovered that our complaint wasn't the first and Parker had indeed been fired as a result. Emma went on to explain that she had visited Parker's wife, Claire, and apologized for the affair. As she recounted the entire story and her efforts to mend things with me, she broke down in tears. Claire responded with unexpected kindness, likely understanding the depth of Emma's remorse. She consoled Emma, suggesting that while Parker had a reputation for seducing women, it wasn't entirely Emma's fault. Claire also warned Emma never to disrespect me again and wished her luck in reconciling with me. Claire implied that, while this wasn't the first time something like this had happened, it would certainly be the last, leaving me with a sense that she might be seeking legal advice. After leaving Claire, Emma called Sophia to inform her that she was canceling her gym membership and continuing with therapy. She had come to realize that she was a mature woman with a family depending on her and was determined to be the best mother and wife she could be. She also decided to give away most of her new clothes, keeping only a few items appropriate for her age. Emma continued, saying she had been researching articles about affairs and even read about wives who took polygraph tests to answer all their husbands' questions. She discovered about 20 common questions asked in such tests and, last week, had an appointment at a downtown office that specialized in lie detector exams. She had answered all the questions truthfully, and while the testing office found her questions unorthodox, they agreed to include them in the exam. Emma presented an envelope, explaining that it contained the results of the polygraph test. She assured me that she hadn't opened it or looked at the results herself. She was confident in the truthfulness of her answers and believed the results would confirm her honesty. She even offered to undergo regular polygraph tests every few months to prove her commitment to me and to rebuild my trust. Emma took a deep breath and continued, her voice steady but earnest. She explained that she had consulted with an attorney to draft a postnuptial agreement as a demonstration of her commitment to regaining my trust. The agreement stipulates that if she were to make the same mistake again, she would willingly forfeit custody of our children and vacate our home without seeking any support or alimony. She mentioned that this is a common practice among those who have betrayed their spouses, and she acknowledged her mistakes and the stigma attached to them. "I know I have a lot of making up to do," she said, her eyes earnest. "I promise to prioritize you above all else." You'll find the postnuptial agreement along with the polygraph test results in the envelope. Her actions and revelations left me stunned. My wife had clearly recognized the magnitude of her impact on our family and our marriage. I took a moment to collect my thoughts before responding. "Well, Emma," I began, "I must admit I'm surprised by your efforts. It certainly gives me something to consider, but I have one pressing question. Why are you so determined to salvage this marriage? You've clearly lost respect for me as your husband, and with your looks and physique, you could have any man you want. You need to be honest with yourself and reflect on why you want to stay with me, a middle-aged man who's not in the best shape. Given your feelings towards me, I can't understand why you'd want me now. My suspicion is that you're driven by guilt and seeking forgiveness to ease that burden." "No, that's not it," she responded, her voice trembling. "I want us to get back together because I love you. You were there for me when I was ill, took care of me, nursed me back to health, and never once complained. Your love has always been unwavering, and I took it all for granted. Now I realize how precious that love truly is. There's no one else I desire, and I can't even picture being with anyone else. It's always been you, and I squandered it. Honestly, you've always fulfilled my needs and made me happy. I just took everything for granted and became selfish. That will never happen again." As she spoke, her sobs grew more intense, drawing the attention of other patrons in the restaurant. I moved closer, wrapping my arms around her and holding her tightly as she wept into my shoulder. My heart ached at the sight of her distress, and I wondered how many more emotional upheavals I could endure. Once she had calmed down, she handed me an envelope. "Read the contents later, when you're alone," she said. Her words piqued my curiosity, and I wondered what revelations awaited me. As we drove home and approached the driveway, Emma looked at me with the saddest eyes I had ever seen. "Please don't leave us, Max, don't move out of our home," she pleaded. "I'm willing to stay in the guest room if you don't want me in your bed," Emma said, her voice tinged with vulnerability. "I understand why you might feel that way. If I were in your position, I'd feel the same. I'm here for as long as you need me. I just want to be with you and reunite our family. Please don't abandon us. I know you might never forgive me, but I'm asking for a chance to win back your love. Please." That night, I retreated to the guest room. I took a shower, brushed my teeth, and climbed into bed, my thoughts consumed by the manila envelope that lay on the nightstand. What revelations did it hold? Would it make any difference? Did I even want her back after everything that had transpired? The questions swirled in my mind as I hesitated to open the envelope. When I finally mustered the resolve to examine its contents, I was struck by the thoroughness of the polygraph test report. It was clear that Emma had put considerable effort into addressing every question that had troubled me. The detailed responses, organized data, and summary revealed that she had taken my concerns seriously. The questions within the report seemed deliberately scrambled, possibly to prevent Emma from anticipating them. It was evident that Emma had crafted these questions herself, as they did not follow the conventional format of a standard polygraph test. I read through her answers, my mind still grappling with uncertainty about our future. Yet, I felt a sense of relief as I absorbed her responses to the questions that had weighed heavily on me. That night, despite the lingering doubts about my future, I slept more soundly, comforted by the clarity the answers had provided. The next morning, I approached Emma's room and asked her to join a family meeting. Emma appeared exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes, a clear sign of the stress and tears she had endured due to the family's cold treatment. Ironically, the only person who had continued to speak to her and forgiven her was Adam, who was suffering the most. Our family meeting was the first since the incident, and Emma seemed apprehensive as she sat alone on the couch. I took a seat beside her, holding her hand, fully aware that this conversation would be challenging. "Emma," I began, "what you've done has inflicted serious harm on our family and left me with one of the most agonizing decisions of my life. You might not agree with my choice, but it's the only way I can preserve my self-respect as a man. The kids have expressed their desire to keep our family together. Until last night, I couldn't imagine a scenario where I wouldn't leave you and find a new apartment. Yet, after reading the polygraph report and seeing your efforts to repair our marriage over the past month, you've surprised me. Your betrayal was a devastating blow, but the real damage came from how you treated me and the family in the months leading up to the accident. When I found out you were involved with another man and had emotionally checked out, I was certain that a divorce was the only option. The pain of your infidelity, compounded by its role in Adam's accident, seemed unforgivable. After much consideration, I genuinely believed that if the roles were reversed and I had an affair that resulted in Adam's accident, you wouldn't have hesitated to end our marriage. You would have shown me the door without a second thought. However, for reasons I can't fully explain, I still find myself holding on to love for you. The thought of losing you now would cause me even more pain than what I've already endured. It's a paradox. Despite everything, my feelings for you remain strong. Yet, I cannot stay in this marriage and knowing that you've betrayed my trust, shattered your commitment to fidelity, and violated our marital vows. Continuing this marriage would mean condoning your actions, and as much as it might sound harsh, I've made the firm decision to proceed with a divorce. That's what I needed to convey. Emma was devastated, but she understood that my mind was made up and that my decision was final. I've forgiven her, but trust is something I can no longer extend. The divorce process took a couple of months and went uncontested. We divided our assets evenly, and since our children were grown, custody wasn't an issue. The details aren't worth going into, but the process went smoothly. I have to give her credit. She made it clear that her top priority was to mend what she could and support our family. There were moments when I thought about Emma, but it was due to the lingering love I still had for her. We've managed to maintain contact, and everyone, including our children, is content. Overall, we're all managing well, and the events of that fateful day are now firmly in the past, never to be revisited. Adam made a full recovery. Thanks to months of physical therapy, he developed a routine of regular exercise, which has been good for him. As for my own love life, I'm currently unattached but remain hopeful about the future. Regarding Parker, he faced the consequences of his actions and the damage he caused to my family and marriage. His wife, Claire, quickly kicked him out and served him divorce papers after learning about his affair. He ended up in a small studio apartment, and his attempts at dating were short-lived, as potential partners soon discovered his history of infidelity. I learned about his struggles through Claire, who reached out to me, perhaps believing it might help in the healing process. I don't know exactly why she reached out, but I appreciate her gesture. I once read a quote that goes, "Sometimes offering someone a second chance is like giving them an extra bullet after they missed you the first time, hoping that this time they'll use it wisely." Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Take care.